Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to another critique of the week. It is Friday, October 7th. So glad you could join me. A pleasure, as always, to do these critiques. Let's see, who do we got in the house? We got Nate Jacob here. We got Cindy Gore. We got Nate Jacob again. Kind of a light crowd so far. But Nate says, I'm ready this morning for some more Timbits, which is a Tim Horton reference. My father-in-law is Canadian, and so he always makes that joke as well. The old Timbits are like little, I guess they're like donut holes in the Tim Hortons, which is like a Canadian staple. And growing up in Rochester, New York, we had a Tim Hortons. We had this thing where they were trying to make a fast ferry across Lake Ontario, and then to sort of entice some cross business. And they opened up a Tim Hortons in Rochester when I was there. But anyway, we got a track to Fahey, Angela Gartner, and Tom Barlow too on YouTube. We got people coming in now on Facebook too. We got Joe Barca there and Martin Weston. We got Jenny Middleton, Sharon Ferrante. We got Katie Dozier. We got Mariel Class. Got a good group in the house. Okay, as always, the point. Oh, Ethne's here. Ethne Longstaff, the poet, the winner. If you didn't see, and I think you probably did, the soap haiku. Which is very fun. Those will be available from Whole Life Soaps with Ethne's poem next week, I guess. So check out wholelifesoaps.com for that. A really fun contest that they do over there. But as always, this is the critique of the week, not Tim Babble. And so we're going to look at a couple poems each by two poets and leave as much feedback as you can. This is a chance to learn stuff about poetry, have your work, see what strangers think about it. As a reader, you can think and sort of fine-tune your opinions, too, as we go. So leave as many comments as you can. The poets will be able to look back at the comments on YouTube and Facebook later. I'll try to pass along as many as I can as well. And let's take a look at this first poem now. The poets today are Maria Ceferatti and Ron Lauderbach. But we're going to look at Maria's poems first, so here we go. Here's Maria's first poem. That's Maria Ceferatti. And Maria has two longish poems, or, well, not longish, but 2 pages. And then Ron has 2 short poems. So we'll see how that works out. We might go a little longer with Maria's just because there's more length to them. But let's see. Walking the Wissahickon on the first day of September. Walking the Wissahickon on the first day of September. On the way, I wonder, how long is this going to take? I'm wearing sneakers, but it's warmer than it should be. Mother Nature ignored her weather app. At the start, I spot a porta potty. Can't help think of the phrase when nature calls. The rocks seem to roll their eyes at me. A podcast plays in my ears while I track my steps, cooled by the canopy breeze. The leaves applaud my debut. I take out my AirPods, distracted by a sound I'd never heard. Follow the gulpy chirping and see a chipmunk perched on a stone, its throat pulsing with each tiny call. I reach for my phone to snap a pic, but then an a-hole on a bike glides past, laughing, and my new friend runs into a mess of tall grass. Walking again, I removed my sunglasses, tinting everything too blue. My city eyes spot the first fall leaf clinging to its yellow on the noisy, gray gravel. Along the river, felled trees are puked up from their roots, and I watch the way the water modulates smooth, then pulled into foamy rage over rocks, nature's ruckus. And then I see it, a red-covered bridge. It's cliché, but real. A plaque says it's the last covered bridge in a major U.S. city. I enter and read graffiti from people past. Amy loves Steve in 2009, and black spray paint says there is good. I touch wooden beams crisscrossed along a stretch of planks above, trying to glean its energy or wisdom. Then I snag my skin on a splinter. Fuck, I say, hearing my echoed surprise. Gazing at the tender spot on my finger, I leave the bridge to step back on the path. Runners clip-clop past. Don't meet my eyes. But one walker with a vape pen nods hello as if I belong here. At the end of the trail, I realize that I've lost my AirPods, distracted by vistas and pants pockets too shallow. I picture a squirrel finding a shiny plastic prize, a small price for the gifts I've just received. So that is the first poem, Walking in the Wissahickon on the first day of September. I assume that sounds like a Wisconsin type type name. Let me look it up. I'm kind of curious. We will look up where that is really quick. Wissahickon. That is, it's Pennsylvania. It's a creek in Pennsylvania. Very nice, though, the Wissahickon. So walking the Wissahickon on the first day of September. So we know, we're situated with the title. We kind of know what's going on. We're ready to ride into the poem, so that's a good thing. On the way in, I wonder how long is this going to take? I'm wearing sneakers, but it's warmer than it should be. Mother Nature ignored her weather app. So already we have this issue we had with the last week's both poems. So it's like 3 in a row where we're not using regular punctuation. But sometimes there are punctuations. Down here, there's a period, and there's some periods down here. But up here, we're not using periods. And that, maybe it just throws me off. I don't know what everybody else thinks as they come across a poem that does that. But to me, it feels a little disorienting, not having a consistent, but maybe it's too much copy editing. I don't know. But to me, I would like to see consistent punctuation. If it's going to be a poem that has no punctuation, great. If it's going to be a poem that has, a lot of times it feels like the capitalization is used for denoting like sentence changes, which is fine if that's a consistent way. But it goes back and forth, and that always throws me off a little bit. It's just distracting. So first of all, use regular punctuation, I would say. So on the way in, I wonder how long is this going to take, and that's fine. I'm wearing sneakers. Technically you should probably have a comma there, just because it's a new, it's a place you'd have a comma. I'm wearing sneakers, but it's warmer. And again, you'd have a comma there too. Then it should be mother, and then either a dash or a period, so it feels like, that's what you would do if you were adding the right punctuation. And then, the other option is to take off the punctuation, which might be a better choice, because there's not that much. It's like each stanza ends in its own, or at least sometimes they do. But anyway, that's the punctuation issue. Just be consistent with punctuations. Just you don't want people thinking about your punctuation choices while they're reading a poem. You want them to think about the experience that you're generating and the emotions that come out of that experience. Like, you want us to live inside your poem and not live inside your syntax or your punctuation. So just make it consistent so we don't notice. Because like here we have at the start comma, which is the same structure as the comma that should be there if we were following common rules. So just keep it consistent. But on the way, oops, that's not where the comma's supposed to go there. But anyway, on the way in, I wonder how long is this going to take? I'm wearing sneakers, but it's warmer than it should be. Mother Nature ignored her weather app. So it's a good start. Like we get the sense of what's going on. At the start, I spot a porta potty. Can't help think of the phrase, when nature calls. The rocks seem to roll their eyes at me. It's kind of funny, the personification of the rock there. A podcast plays in my ears. So it's like, Chekhov's gun. We're going to get the AirPods later. A podcast plays in my ears while I track my steps, cooled by the canopy breeze. The leaves applaud my debut. I wonder what the debut is. Because when I got to that part, let's see. Looking at some comments. When I got to that part, I was thinking, a podcast placement is the debut of just myself in nature. Because at first I was thinking you were singing along to the speaker was singing along to a song maybe. But obviously that's not with a podcast. So that kind of, the leaves applaud my debut. The word debut just makes me think of something different than maybe what's intended, because I think it's just my appearance in nature is what that's referring to. I take out my AirPods, distracted by a sound I'd never heard. Follow the gulpy chirping and see a chipmunk perched on a stone, its throat pulsing with each tiny call. It's a very good description here. I like that. I feel very... And so my first thing is, I think these 3 stanzas are kind of taking too long to get to more interesting stuff, I would say. Taylor J. says, with debut, I was thinking the leaves respond to her arrival somehow through sound. That's interesting. Like maybe arrival is a better word. That sounds better. I think that's the word we're going for. And then, and I think and my sense is the leaves applaud because there's like a gust of wind or something that like shakes the leaves, and they kind of do like a little quiet clap thing. I like that. I think I was saying though, I think there's like a little too much intro here. Like it's like this happened, then this happened, then this happened. I think we could kind of condense that and then get out to the more interesting descriptions here. So I think I would probably condense these 3 stanzas into one just to get through that quicker. It feels a little long. I take out my AirPods, distracted by a sound I'd never heard, follow the gulpy chirping, and see a chipmunk perched on a stone, its throat pulsing with each tiny call. Again, that's a very good description. I reach for my phone to snap a pic, but then an a-hole on a bike glides past laughing, and my new friend runs into a mess of tall grass. I like the mess of tall grass. I reach for my phone to snap a pic, and then an a-hole on a bike glides past laughing. I don't think this is one of those things where I don't think we need to call him an a-hole because what he's doing, it tells him what he is, So I'd say like, maybe but then a biker glides past laughing, and just not have the let us make our own conclusions. Anytime you can have the reader draw a conclusion for themselves, that becomes a way that we can participate, and it become more of a two-way street. So you want us to be engaged in the poem and kind of making our own judgments sometimes, and that's a place where it's really easy to do. So you can just reference, let the biker be, and then he's gliding past laughing and ruining this moment, which we all know, like, what a jerk. Yeah, and Clayton Clark says the a-hole took me out. And also, if you're going to say a-hole, just say asshole. You say fuck, I think, right? Isn't there the fuck later in the poem? Or am I just imagining that? I thought there was. Maybe we'll get to it. But anyway, it took me out too. So I would cut that part. Let me look up. I ignoring Facebook. Sydney Gut Putner. Cindy Putnam Guthrie says, "Too pretty, a poem for profanity." Let's see. Yeah, Nate Jacob already said debut arrival, so I should have been looking over here. Would have. Thanks, Nate. Would have sped me up. Let's see. Joe Becker says, "I was engaged all the way through. I thought of Mary Oliver." And Katie Dozier points out the rocks seem to roll their eyes at me, and she says it feels like a haiku, and it really does. I mean, that alone, good point. That could be a haiku, and you find like haikus in the in poems all the time, but that's a perfect where the line break changes the meaning and it ends up being two things simultaneously. That would be a cool haiku. Where's Josh Williams? Is he here today? But let's keep going with this poem. Nate Jacob says, "I like the sounds of nature are the distraction from the podcast. A fine twist. The tension here between nature and being present is a good poetic device to build upon." Yeah. Okay, let's keep going with this poem. "Walking again, I remove my sunglasses, tinting everything too blue. My city eyes spot for the first fall leaf clinging to its yellow on the noisy gravel." Another really nice description there. There's some great pieces of writing, little just wonderful descriptions throughout the poem, and that's one of the really good ones. "Along the river, felled trees are puked up from their roots." I like that too. It's very vivid. Although it makes me wonder what would have puked them up. Like it sort of leaves the actor missing a little bit. So I wonder, but I do like it. It's evocative. It makes me want a little explanation, I think. I watch the way the water modulates, smooth and pulled into foamy rage over rocks, nature's ruckus. And then I see it, a red-covered bridge. And then I see it makes me think that the whole poem is really about the bridge, and I don't think it is. So I was wondering about that aspect of it. This kind of turn just really strongly suggests that that's the central thing. Like the whole poem was just getting us to this bridge. But I feel like the whole poem was about being in nature and then the things that interrupt that. Katie Dozier says, I liked a little bit of gross in this poem, the porta potty reference, the curse words, etc. Yeah. Okay, so a red covered bridge. It's cliche but real. A plaque says it's the last covered bridge in a major U.S. city. I enter and read graffiti from people past. Amy loves Steve in 2009. And black spray paint says there is good. So this, I don't think this lives up to this section here. Could be described better, I think. It doesn't live up to the really great lines in other stanzas. And I think let's see, a plaque says it's the last covered bridge in a major U.S. city. I enter and read graffiti from people past. Part of it is that you don't need that. It could just be, a plaque says it's the last covered bridge in a major U.S. city, covered in graffiti. Amy loves Steve. Just jump right in instead of I enter and read. Like there's a lot of I do this, then I do this, then I do this in this poem, and you don't want to get in that kind of repetition because that's another thing that we get sort of we get conditioned or habituated, I guess, to that structure, and then it doesn't have as strong an effect. And so I would avoid that. Like I do this, I do this, I do this. I enter, I touch the wooden beams, I do this, I snag my skin. So anywhere you can avoid that kind of repetition of structure is a good thing to do. And so that's one of the places that I would get rid of this I enter, because we don't need to know you enter. If you're looking at the graffiti that's inside, you've entered it. So you don't need to tell us that you've entered. And that's the kind of, like the poem really, I think it could cut about a third and be stronger for it. And then that's the kind of thing that can cut. Jenny Middleton says, to me, a red bridge is not a cliche. Oops, it jumped. Perhaps I'm missing something. Does the writer just mean the bridge is old? Well used? If so, perhaps more could be done with that line. There is, maybe it's, I think Jenny Middleton is British. It might be an American thing. But there's that book, Bridges Over Madison County, and there's like books of people like coffee table books of like pictures of covered bridges, and it's kind of a thing, like a touristy thing that people look at. So that's what she's referring to, which might be a reference that you just don't get. And Eric Zweig says avoid over narrating. Yeah, that's a concise way to put what I was saying about that. I did this, I did this, I did this. We don't need to see it all. Like let our consciousness move through spaces rather than have the whole scene, like every single action play out. Sharon Francis says it's like two poems in one. I would shorten it. And Darlene Coleman says, I think the big deal with a bridge is that it's a covered one. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. So I would just get these descriptions, quicker. Just say the thing, not the action. Like paint the scene and move through the scene is a better way to think of it often than to show the action all the time. Because when you're going to show the action, you want it to be a strong thing that's really memorable. And so save that for when it's really important. I touch wooden beams. Again, so I touch wooden beams, but wooden beams could just crisscross along a stretch of planks above. Wooden beams crisscross the stretch of planks above, trying to glean its energy or wisdom. So really, this sense of this verb is just unnecessary. It's just clutter. So describe, don't show motion. Trying to glean its energy or wisdom. Then I snag my skin on splinter. Fuck, I say, hearing my echoed surprise. I agree. I think I agree with Katie Dozier, and I think Nate agreed, or maybe Joe Barca. I think the mix of the because that's what the poem's really about. It's about being this sort of, like not really being in tune with the nature, but wanting to be, like the beauty and the purity of nature versus everything else that's going on, which is why I wanted a little bit more with this puked up from their roots. Because this is the only time, there it is. This is the only time the nature is sort of gross in the way that like humanity is. Like it's a man versus nature type poem, like our pollution and our lack of care, etc. And this puked up is the only time nature does that kind of thing. And so it asks itself to be explained a little bit, I think. But anyway, let's keep going. Gazing at the tender spot on my finger, I leave the bridge to step back on the path. Runners clip-clop past, don't meet my eyes, but one walker with a vape pen nods hello as if I belong here. Again, I think that's a really good description too. There are a lot of really good descriptions. At the end of the trail, I realized I've lost my AirPods, distracted by vistas and pants pockets too shallow. See, I think this, let's see. I think this is like over-explaining too. I would cut those lines. Because you don't need the explanation for it. So at the end of the trail, I realized I've lost my AirPods. I wouldn't put that either. Like anything you can cut, just cut. It's cluttery. It's a really good poem and a nice progression and painting a nice picture. There's just a lot of clutter, and so cutting out the clutter is the main thing here. I picture but we could say at the end of the trail, I realize I've lost my AirPods. I picture a squirrel finding a shiny plastic prize. So how easy it is to skip that stuff. We don't need that. A small price to pay for the gifts I've just received. And then this is the main thing. So the poem has a little clutter, and then the ending, I think, doesn't live up to the poem. I think it's just this section here isn't right. It just, it's sort of a summary of what I think I'm trying to say, rather than some kind of spontaneous utterance from my subconscious, So I picture a squirrel finding a shiny plastic prize. I guess the small price is part of it. A small price for the gifts I've just received. It's just such a summary of what, a moralizing type thing that I want you to get from this poem, instead of letting us experience something for ourselves. It could even end there. At the end of the trail, I realize I've lost my AirPods. I picture a squirrel finding a shiny plastic prize. And maybe the squirrel could do something with it, but just ending on that image and letting us come to that conclusion that you want to draw makes us actually feel it instead of just being told. Nate Jacob says, I do not sense that the speaker sensed any real value in the gifts. It almost feels ironic, whether intentionally or not. Yeah. And back to the bridges, though. Jenny Middleton elaborates a little bit here. She says, Britain and Europe are full of tourist attractions. I don't see them as cliches, just as stuff that's gone on before, which can lead to an understanding of how people then wanted the world to look. We don't want it to look that way now, but accepting and understanding the past is the first step to moving on from it. That's interesting, though. I think the cliche line, it's like I'm walking through the woods and then I see this thing that you would see in a poem, walking through the woods. I don't think it's like that the actual barn itself. It's like the experience of going on a hike and then seeing an old covered bridge is kind of a cliche. A cliched experience, I guess, is what I think that's accurate. Nate Jacob says, I do not sense that the speaker sensed any real value in the gifts. It almost feels ironic, whether intentional or not. That's interesting. Yeah. But I think you just cut this and end kind of here, and maybe just a little bit. Like I pictured a squirrel finding a shiny plastic prize. Like what would the squirrel do with it? I don't know. I think there's maybe a little bit more you could add, but leaving it on that image and letting us come to that conclusion, I think, is a better way to finish the poem. Let's see. Yeah, and Taylor J says, I love the idea of that last stanza, but yeah, not ending on an image takes some of the power out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. So Tom Barlow says she might have her friend the chipmunk find the earpod and bring back that image. Yeah, I don't know. I picture a squirrel or maybe the chipmunk. I picture that chipmunk finding a shiny plastic prize and somehow like wondering about it or something, wondering where it came from or what to do with it. Let's see. Deb T says, shedding the city and its ways as she walks. I like this poem. I agree with suggestions to tighten it, taking out some of the scaffolding or connecting words. Yeah, exactly. So it's just a poem. It's a good poem that just has some, grooming to do. All those loose threads. So how much time we got? Oh, we've already gone through 20 minutes on this one. Okay. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't want to go through and do all the, but you can really just look through and see the parts that really work, the great descriptions, and find a way to just move through quickly through those great descriptions. And that's the way to think about it. And then just the clutter. I'm wearing sneakers, like anything that's not super necessary. You could just, it's warmer than it should be is a much more interesting thing than wearing sneakers. Um, and so, at the start, I spot a porta potty, and then we have can't help think of the phrase when nature calls. But how much better is it like this? At the start, I spot a porta potty. Think when nature calls. The rocks seem to roll their eyes at me. Like just getting rid of that makes it get so quicker. And there's this sense, I think we talked about it before, but slam poets talk about sort of the velocity of things that are interesting. And so you want to have as much like packed tight into a line as possible so that you have as much like stimulation for that like reward system that we get out of a poem. And so drawing things out with only, the reward here, there's two rewards. There's kind of like the humor of it and the haiku-ishness, which Katie Dozier pointed out. So there's two rewards there, but let's like get to them as quick as possible and then move on. So we just keep having this like reward. We're feeling pleasure in reading the poem. So it's just condensing like that. I'm not going to go through the whole poem like that, but that's the kind of thing I mean. Cut stuff like this and this, like find it for yourself, but cut that kind of stuff and get right to the stuff. Like just do the stuff that's needed and not the stuff that you don't need. So, and it's a good poem though. So it's just a really easy poem to critique actually. It's kind of like right there and just cut stuff out. It's a really good workshop editing down type poem. A good candidate for revision. Okay, let's move on to the next. And we only have, I think we'll go a little long, but we only have technically like 5 minutes for this second poem. But I think we'll do longer because the other two poems, like I said, are short. So again, this is Maria Ceferatti, Ceferatti. The Visit. Hank and Barb had a grassy yard, insects that chirped in a screened-in porch. We had roaches, blacktops, and garbage alleyways. Over pot roast, Hank called Barb a Pollock. Or Pollock? Pollock? Yeah, I guess Pollock. I was thinking Jackson Pollock at first, but that's not right. Pollock. She rolled her eyes, he winked, and our parents laughed. The land behind our house sloped down steep, like an outstretched hand, a slanted invitation. After dinner, they went to the porch, and Sister and I raced to the top of the lawn, rolled down sideways spinning, and the grass smelled sweet, and the dirt felt clean. We picked the leaves out of our hair and laughed and squealed and climbed back up to do it again. Look at us, we called. They glanced up and waved us away, one holding a beer, another a glass of red wine or a cup of coffee. All their talking and bitter grown-up drinks. When it got really dark, the lightning bugs emerged, tiny pulsing drones. Country bugs do tricks, we thought. Barb gave us jars to catch the quiet flies. Bring them here, Hank said. We walked up the hill, careful, carrying homemade lanterns. With a cigarette squeezed in his lips, Hank caught the dancing light, then pinched the bug's head. Its flame signaled for help. He opened the wings and tore off its magic flare. There you go. He wrapped the twinkling tail around our pinkies, mesmerized by our grisly gifts. We watched them flicker and dim as we walked once more to the top of the hill. Rolling again under the sparkled sky, we said a silent sorry to the innocent beacons in reach. After our last run, we looked back, dizzy, blinking, mixing up the fireflies with the glowing orange tips of sucked-on cigarettes. So that's The Visit. Very interesting. So I think this is a great poem. I think the other poem has a lot of good stuff in it, but this has potential to be a really great poem because it's a different topic too that you don't see much. So I think, so it's called The Visit. So I assume we're visiting somebody, but who are we visiting? Hank called Barb. That's one thing I think I'd like to learn in the course of the poem that I don't think I did, is what the relationship to Hank and Barb are to the speaker. I imagined, like, who are they visiting? I imagined, as the poem goes through, I'm imagining like Barb is the mother and Hank is like a new boyfriend. But there's no explanation for that. Maybe I missed something. So if anybody knows what their relationship is, let's see. So Kelly Rush says, I like the somewhat sinister feel. Yeah, it's about childhood innocence being ruined by adults, and that feeling of that. And actually, it's a perfect poem for this week's prompt on the Rattlecast, which is one of those like special life-changing memory moments. I can't remember what it was called. Katie Dozier says, I think the title should make the relationships clear. Yeah. Oh, and Sharon Friend says parents' friends, Hank and Barb. Yeah, I mean, that might just be it. But the parents never appear. So if they're not there, you wonder where they are. So the only thing, really, there are a few things I think a cluttery clear up could do, especially toward the end. But just in this opening section, just to make it clear, I think Sharon Ferrante is right that it's that those are friends that are visiting, and that's what the visit is. But I would like one line to explain that somewhere. So Hank and Barb had a grassy yard. Well, we're visiting them. So Hank and Barb had a grassy yard, insects that chirped, and a screened-in porch. We had roaches, blacktops, and garbaged alleyways. Over pot roast, this might not be where to do it, but over pot roast with our parents or something, you could explain what the relationship is there, and then we won't have to wonder about it. We're just wasting time wondering. Hank called Barb a Polak. She rolled her eyes. He winked, and our parents laughed. Oh, there's the parents. I guess I just missed that. Yeah. I guess I was distracted for that line. Sorry for that. So I guess you do. Over pot roast, Hank called Barb a Polak. She rolled her eyes and winked. Our parents laughed. Maybe just a little bit more, because you describe that a little bit. Like, what kind of laugh? Like, make that stand out a little bit, because it's an important detail for figuring out what's actually going on in the poem. The land behind their house sloped down like an outstretched hand, a slanted invitation. That's a great description, a slanted invitation. After dinner, they went to the porch, and Sister and I raced to the top of the lawn, rolled down sideways, spinning, and the grass smelled sweet, and the dirt felt clean, and we picked the leaves out of our hair and laughed and squealed and climbed back up to do it again. So this is a great run, rhythmically, and just you can feel like the poem, the musicality and the rhythm of the poet like lock in. Like, this is like spontaneous writing out of the subconscious, which is what you really want to go for. And so the slowness in other sections sort of has to live up to this. There's like as great as it is, there's a big contrast. And I think tightening it up will fix that issue. So still be tightening. But I love that. A great description of that time. Look at us, we called. They glanced up and waved us away, one holding a beer, another with a glass of wine or cup of coffee. While they're talking and bitter grown-up drinks. Again, great description. There's nothing I would really cut in this section. When it got really dark, the lightning bugs emerged, tiny pulsing drones. Country bugs do tricks, we thought. Barb gave us jars to catch the quiet flies. Bring them here, Hank said. And we walked up the hill, careful, carrying homemade lanterns. Yeah, this is good. So here, bring the bugs here, or bring them here. There's a real menace in that. I mean, we already get that from Hank. And so we know that it's something bad's going to happen. There's like a foreshadowing, a foreboding kind of feel there. So it's just good storytelling. With a cigarette, and again, that cigarette comes back later, so it's great use of that. Foreshadowing. With a cigarette squeezed in his lips, Hank caught the dancing light, then pinched the bug's head. Its flame signaled for help. He opened the wings and tore off its magic flare. There you go. He wrapped a twinkling tail around our pinkies. I think this little section here, Kimberly McNeil says the mutilation of the firefly is a cruel display. It is, for sure. There's something about the flame signal for help. He opened the wings and tore off its magic flare. I think maybe just the there you go is in the wrong place. I think maybe the there you go should go after wrapped around our pinkies. He opened the wings and tore off its magic flare, wrapping the twinkling tail around our pinkies. There you go. I think that's a better, And then there's this he did this too. So I would do that and move the there you go down to there. Because you still, again, you don't want that this happened, then this happened. Like he did this, then he did this, then he did this. It's something to avoid because we get habituated to it and it doesn't stand out as much. Mesmerized by our grisly gifts. I think, see, again, and this is the too much telling that we had in the last poem a little bit. I would just let the reader, we know that you have this, the speaker has this childhood innocence and this wonder, and then it's being, brutalized. Like it's just a terrible thing that's happened in front of them. And we know just as much as they know. And so let that be unspoken. Let us feel that and make that connection and feel like we're participating in the poem again. So mesmerized by our grisly gifts, just cut that. So this how much better this section is. It's a flame signal for help. He opened the wings and tore off its magic flare, wrapping the twinkling tail around our pinkies. There you go. We watched them flicker and dim as we walked once more to the top of the hill. So letting that be unspoken, it's just so much more powerful than saying it, that the gifts were grisly. Rolling again under the sparkled sky, we said a silent sorry to the innocent beacons in reach. And again, this is the same thing too, I think. So I think I would just cut this whole stanza because we just don't want to be told that. We already feel it. We don't need to be told it. There's already this sense of menace from these two people. And there's also this horror of what beautiful thing he just ruined. It was fun. So we don't need to be, we saw it. We felt it. We don't need to be told it either. So cut that again. And I think I shouldn't have said to cut this line. Keep that one and cut that one. So it should be like this. We watched them flicker and dim as we walked once more to the top of the hill. Rolling again under the sparkled sky, we looked back, dizzy, blinking, mixing up the fireflies with the glowing orange tips of sucked-on cigarettes. And that is just a great ending. So it's just the clutter here. Cut out a few lines that you don't need and let us feel the feeling of it. And it's a great poem. I think it's a really, really good one, The Visit. Yeah. And Pat O'Donohue says sucked-on cigarettes has a nice alliteration to it. It definitely does. Let me see. Oh, Tom Barlow points out a little detail that I kind of missed, or I forgot to say, or flipped, or anyway. The Tom Barlow says he kills one bug but wraps multiple pinkies. That was the thing I was trying to get at, where something didn't feel right. Let's see. He pinched the bug's head. Its flame signaled for help. He opened the wings and tore off its magic flare. He has to do it multiple times to wrap it around. He has to take a bunch of these bugs. So something is off in that description. And that's one of the things too that needs to be explained a little better. Yeah. So Taylor J says, I liked so much of this poem. Great sounds and specific imagery, subtle contrast between youth and age. Maybe tighten up a few stanzas and tweak the title to fit the suggested theme. Clayton Clark says, great ending. Love this poem. Just trim. Yeah. And so especially, the last line, how powerful this last line is compared to the other poem. Compare that to the last line here. A small price for the gift I've just received. How much more power it has when you end in an image and let us. It's not really that the image. We are visual creatures, so the images are more powerful to us than anything else because we have such a huge visual cortex. But the real power is that we get to see it and then experience it and have our own reaction to it rather than being told the reaction. And that's why ending on an image is so good. And you can see the difference between ending on this super strong image. It's such a great image where the fireflies become these sinister cigarettes. That's just great. And that lets the whole poem have this huge sense of the whole emotion of it, hanging over us as we read it, which is what you want. So that's why you end on images if you can. Usually there's different ways to end poems, but that's a good thing to do because of that. All right. So we have 20 minutes and there are 2 short poems from Don. So I think that's probably perfect. So let's move on to the next 2 poems. And again, this is Ron Lauderbach. Ron Lauderbach. San Quentin Let Down. A fillet knife flashes like a sword in the sun. The boy is quick with hands that know what to do. If I could see only his dusty feet, he might be Christ, not Chewy. From behind a warped table, he casts a fish head and spine out of a cat carton. Gaviotas fight for food. It's 98 degrees, so I hand Chewy a Pacifico. He takes a man-sized chug and sets the bottle in the shade. I feel fellowship, international camaraderie. His friend Nacho asks where he got the cerveza. Chewy jerks his head toward me. Pinche gringo. That is San Quentin letdown. I feel like I need to know what pinche means. So let me look that up. So it's fucking gringo. So pinche is fucking. So we get another fucking. We get a cursing in these two poems. I didn't know that. I'm surprised, taking Spanish classes in middle school, that wasn't a word that every kid knew. But okay. So, yeah. I think maybe letdown in the title, like, sort of tells the story of the poem. And so I would probably just change. Maybe you could call it San Quentin, or you could call it something else. But I think that there's too much, like, nothing. If you start the title is letdown, then nothing actually changes in the poem. Even though, like, we know a letdown's coming, so we're waiting for the letdown. So the first thing I would do is get rid of the letdown in the title and maybe describe the scene a little more. Like, where are we? Instead of just San Quentin. When I think of San Quentin, I think of the prison, but I don't think there'd be a fillet knife in the prison. So I mean, it's a town too. Yeah, so maybe just describe where the situation is taking place a little bit in the title instead of the letdown. A fillet knife flashes like a sword in the sun. Yeah, great description. Great way to start out with a really strong image and description. The boy is quick with hands that know what to do. Again, it's two great first sentences. I mean, very concrete, very precise and tight and strong. Good stuff. If I could only see his dusty feet, he might be Christ, not Chewy. From behind a warped table, he casts a fish head and spine out of a cat carton. What's a cat carton? He casts a fish head and spine out of a cat carton. Maybe someone can explain that, but I was confused by that. Gaviotas fight for food. And what is a gaviotas? Seagulls. Okay. So one thing to know, I have no problem having to look up words in poems, especially in the 21st century. So if I like the feel of having foreign words, or words that I don't know from other languages, and I think that's good. I think maybe this one, I don't know, is that a word that is commonly known enough if you're not bilingual, that maybe it should be a little bit of context to know what that is. I don't know, but I like it though. Gaviotas fight for food. It's 98 degrees, so I hand Chewy a Pacifico. I think I would have a stop there, because the poem has this sort of like a slow, it's very, very, very dense and slow with these really short declarative sentences. And so I think I would do that too and keep that going. It's 98 degrees. I hand Chewy a Pacifico. The so sort of stretches it in a way that doesn't want to be stretched. He takes a man-sized chug and sets the bottle in the shade. And so the man-sized chug, of course, suggests like someone who's not a man, it's like a younger person. And so that raises a question too of who that is. I feel fellowship, international camaraderie. His friend Nacho asks where he got the cerveza. Chewy jerks his head toward me. Pinche gringo. And so if we, I don't know. It's interesting because you have to know that word to follow the poem. So you have to expect we either know it or we'll look it up, which is a tricky thing. But I don't know. I think I'm fine with that, actually. I think I'm fine having to look that up. And not everybody will have to look that up, of course. Cartoon is what the other... Wait, where? Where's that? Oh, cartoon. Did I just misread that? Okay, from behind a warp table, he casts a fish head and spine out of a cat cartoon. That's even more confusing. Out of a cat cartoon. I guess there's that spine, the way the fish spine looks in a cartoon. I find it very confusing. I guess I just assumed it in my head, assumed it was a typo because you have to cast something out of something. He casts a fish head, and you cast when you're fishing. You cast. It's a very confusing way to say that, I think. Yeah, but sorry for just misreading that word. And Eric Zweig says like out of a, yeah. Yeah, so it would clear that up if it just it said like out of a. That's the missing word. So I took it too literal. From behind a warp table, he casts a fish head spine like out of a cat cartoon. But I still, even with that explanation, I still have trouble following that. Like what? Kind of warp table. I think the word casts too is just the wrong word choice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was just me messing up. So Joe Barker. Yeah. So Potter O'Donoghue says cat cartoon like Tom and Jerry. Yeah, I mean they have those like fish spines, and he's carving a fish. From behind a warp table, he I think throws or something, or tosses a fish spine. Yeah, there's just a way that it's phrased that throws me off. Darlene Coleman says the boy is quick and drinks like a man. Yeah. Okay, where was somebody addressed what I really wanted to address though? I think it was Joe Barker says great descriptions. The poem needs more, a turn, a twist. I don't know that it does, because the twist, if we don't have the letdown in the title, then we are let down at the end. We're thinking there's this camaraderie and then there's not, which is a thing that happens in life, sometimes. There's just the question of pinche gringo. Like if you know that the poem immediately, like the difference between knowing that that word and not completely changes your experience of the poem. Because if you have to look it up versus understanding it in real time. So how many people knew what that phrase meant? I think there's kind of I don't know. I mean, you can do whatever you want with a poem. There's no rule about it, and you can have it so that 90% of people have to look things up to understand it. But in general, I think if like half the people would get it and half the people wouldn't, then I think that's a fine ratio. Yeah, Joe Barker says not me. Yeah. Katie Doder said I didn't guess wrong. Potter O'Donoghue never heard that phrase. Yeah. You'd think that it's a phrase we would know, though. But, yeah. So that ends up having... Because the thing is, like, if I, as an editor, I'm going to look that up, but as a reader going to look that up. If they flip to it in a literary magazine or in a book, are they going to, if they don't know it, are they going to take the time to look it up, or are they just going to move on to the next poem and then get nothing from this poem? That's kind of the question that you have to ask. And it's an interesting question that I don't know the answer to. It's kind of just up to you if you care or not. Kimberly McNeil says the subtle bigotry is pervasive. Yeah, for sure. And then Melanie Bettinelli says, I did recognize that phrase, saying, growing up in Texas, you pick up on slang. Yeah, so most of us didn't, but a few of us did. So that's just a choice if you wanna have it land like that or not. Is there a word that we would know that's a little more common? Okay. Yeah, I mean, gringo is super common. So I think everybody knows that. But the whole poem turns on Pinche. I don't know. I think I'd leave it. I think the poem works pretty well. So the only thing really, I think the title takes away the punch of the ending. And this, even though I know what everyone's saying, that the cast, he's throwing the fish away, and it works fine, but there's something just, it's almost like a mixed metaphor. The way it's structured. I think it ends up being confusing in a way that isn't worth it. So that needs to be clarified. Melanie Bettinelli says, if the poem is supposed to take me on a journey of letdown, then I kind of want it to give me a bit more footing, to root me in a feeling of camaraderie at the beginning, before the cursing of Pinche Gringo. Eric Zweig says the references are heavily California-based, as if fishing on the pier. Perhaps a small audience, but I appreciate it. Yeah, that's good. So that's just a choice. Where is San Quentin? It's in San Francisco, right? Or is there a different San Quentin? So I'm wondering. Oh, okay. So San Quentin, there's a different San Quentin. It's San Quentin, which I should have noticed with the little mark there. It's San Quentin, not San Quentin, which is actually a city in Baja, Mexico. Okay. Yeah, I would add something like, just in the title, to describe the setting a little bit, so we feel like we know where we are too, and you get rid of the letdown, of course. But I love the descriptions here and the really concrete nature of the poem. There's really not much I'd change. I think that one section needs a little clarity. I think it works. I think it's a good poem. Maybe the international camaraderie line could be a stronger. Is there something way you could put that a little better? I don't know, but it's a pretty good poem. So a few tweaks, and I think it's pretty much good to go. And there's this weird sort of, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next one, and it's even shorter. This is Afternoon in Province. A summer breeze blows through open windows, quiet as sunlight on sunflowers. Lavender scent rides these baby winds, and I can't wait to touch your goose-bumped thighs. It's Afternoon in Province. A summer breeze blows through open windows, quiet. Uh-oh, I have a sneeze. Hang on. Let me... False alarm. All right, there you go. Anyway, Afternoon in Province. A summer breeze blows through open windows, quiet as sunlight on sunflowers. I do like this line a lot. Lavender scent rides these baby winds, and I can't wait to touch your goose-bumped thighs. And where's Province? So Province is a region in historically, it's also a province of southern France, which extends from the left bank of the lower Rhone to the west of the Italian border. Okay, so Afternoon in Provence. A summer breeze blows through open windows, quiet as sunlight on sunflowers. Lavender scent rides these baby winds, and I can't wait to touch your goose-bumped thighs. That's very nice, too. I think a summer breeze. Yeah, Jenny Middleton says, I like this poem, but not the goosebumps, not very Provence. I think I should probably say Provence. Yeah, that's the thing. I wondered. But there's a weird thing, though, where things that feel a little off, they stand out more and make you sort of feel more. Like there's this weird way where you can get a charge out of something that's a little bit different, surprising, a shift in the syntax. And the fact that it's not, as someone said, not very Provence. If you made it a word that was very Provence, it wouldn't work as well, maybe. Katie Dozier says, I like the goosebumps, but would edit the first stanza. Yeah, that's the stanza that doesn't have anything interesting in it. I mean, a summer breeze blows through open windows. It's just very cliche. And there's not a whole lot added to it. The rest, though, quiet as sunlight on sunflowers is great. Lavender Scent rides these baby winds. The fact that they're baby winds and not just winds really sells that. And then the sudden shift. I can't wait to touch your goosebumps with surprise thighs. Goosebump thighs. I think I like it. I agree with Katie that the main thing that changes is just find something interesting to put in there. Even if it was like a summer breeze blows through slatted blinds or something. There was just something different, so it's unusual and not just open windows. Kelly Rush says suggestive and sexy. It accomplishes a mood in a few words. It does. It really does. I think both these by Ron are good poems. Kimberly McNeil says haiku alert. It's true. It's a very haiku-ish type poem. Sidney Putnam Gutherman says, I like the Provence poem. It is almost a picture. Yeah. Okay, let me see over on Facebook or on YouTube. Dick Westheimer says, I do like the goosebump thighs. It adds a third sense, see, hear, and now touch to the poem. Yeah. Provence. Wow, thanks, Dick. So Dick teaches me how to pronounce that. Provence. Okay. I appreciate that. Taylor J says, I love this, especially the last half. Maybe just a bit more in the beginning or middle, though. Not sure. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of these two lines not being interesting. It doesn't live up to the rest of the poem. Otherwise, I love the quickness of it and how quick we shift and how much is condensed. There's a real feeling in it in a very few words. Tom Barlow punches the lavender fields in France. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Provence. Okay. That isn't, I get you. Okay, so it's Provence, France. Gotcha. Thanks, Leslie and Dick. I learned something for today. Okay, Provence. See, I'm just not very cultured, unfortunately. So I've never been to Provence or anywhere in France. I'm just happy to wear pants. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so Dick Westheimer says lovely lyric. Yeah. So two good poems here, just tiny things to fix up, but really interesting stuff. Yeah, and Dick Westheimer says so close. Yeah, just something interesting with those first two lines. Even the title, Afternoon in Provence. Terry R says Provence. I'm never gonna figure it out, but maybe I'll go there someday and I'll learn. But anyway, Provence. Yeah, Afternoon in Provence. A summer breeze blows through open windows. It's just fix that line, and then everything else is good to go. Dick says bingo. There we go. Provence. Okay, we got it. But yeah, and even the notice the transition here. Like we get the beautiful description, and then we can't wait. We're like waiting to know what we can't wait for. And all of a sudden it goes into this sort of sexy place, which is very good. So it's just a good poem overall. There we go. Okay. So Afternoon in Provence. Man, I feel like very cultured now. Thanks for making me feel that way. Okay, so that is going to be the end of the critique of the week. Exactly an hour. I knew those two short poems were going to go quick. So there's both. They're good and there's not, and they're short. So I think we gave it our all, but that's good stuff. Okay, so that is the critique for the week. That was those two really short ones were by Ron Lauderbach, and then we had those two longer poems by Maria Ceferatti. Both very good. There were a lot of good stuff today. Excellent. Actually, the two, all four poems were really good. A lot of good stuff to work through. So thanks for sharing those, Maria and Ron. Let me make sure I didn't miss any comments. Yeah, okay. So we are good to go. That was the show. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. It's been a lot of fun, as it always is. Now, next week on the Rattlecast, we are going to have, and note the time. It's this time, but on a Monday. The Rattlecast is going to be noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's because Nikita Parekh is going to be, she is in India, so it'll be like 9:30 at night for her, which is a fine time. The regular time for us would be like 4 a.m. or something. So we're going to move it up to noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Rattlecast number 163 with Nikita Parekh. And the prompt for this week was to write, I gotta read it because I can't remember the way he phrased it. This came from Bruce Bennett. And it's about a kind of like life-changing memory was what the prompt is. But let me see I'll read his phrasing again. Actually, I think I'm going to actually put it on screen. Oh, I don't have it here. Hang on one second. I'll come back on the screen. So let me find it the other place. I didn't put it on Rattle's page. I got to do that right after the show. So the prompt for this week was, in his long autobiographical poem, The Prelude, Wordsworth writes about what he called spots of time, small memorable events we experience that thereafter remain in our consciousness and give profoundest knowledge, helping us determine who and what we are and what we may become. Write a poem in which you focus on one of these spots of time in your own life and what it has subsequently meant to you. So it's one of those, small memorable events that changed everything for you. Much like, the Visit is the perfect example of the poem that he was talking about. So maybe Maria would like to do the slight edits and condense a little bit and declutter and then share that on the Rattlecast. That'd be great. But that's the prompt for this week. And once again, the guest for this week is going to be Nikita Parekh, Rattlecast number 163, Weird Time, Monday, October 10th, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hope to see you then. Hope you have a great weekend in the meantime, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye.